Hi friends, Mrs. Wright coming to you with our next book, which is called Just a Dream. So the character in this story, his name is Walter, and he goes through quite a transformation from the beginning of the story to the end of the story. Now, I don't once again, you're always paying attention for Fritz, trying to find Fritz. In my packet, this was the only thing I had, so hopefully this is what you have as well. It's just questions based on the story, like what we did yesterday with Two Bad Ants. If you have the other sheet, don't worry about the other sheet, just focus on doing this one, okay? So the first question we're listening for is, based on what you know about Walter at the beginning of the story, what do you infer his future will look like? I'll be telling you when to stop to answer that question. So, here we go. Just a dream. I wonder if this story is like Ben's dream. I don't know. Just a dream. As usual, Walter stopped at the bakery on his way home from school. He bought one large jelly-filled donut. He took the pastry from its bag, eating quickly as he walked along. He licked the red jelly from his fingers. Then he crumpled up the empty bag and threw it at a fire hydrant. What do you guys think about that? What do you guys think about people who litter? Ugh. At home, Walter saw Rose, the little girl next door, watering a tree that had just been planted. "It's my birthday present," she said proudly. Walter couldn't understand why anyone would want a tree for a present. His own birthday was just a few days away. "And I'm not getting some dumb old plant," he told Rose. After dinner, Walter took out the trash. 3 cans stood next to the garage. One was for bottles, one was for cans, one was for food, one was for everything else. As usual, Walter dumped everything into one can. He was way too busy to sort through garbage, especially when there was something good on television. All right, so he's not doing the recycling properly, he's littering, and he thinks trees are stupid. All right, so based on this, what do you think Walter's future is gonna look like? Stop the video and answer question 1. What do you think it's gonna be like? All right. The show that Walter was so eager to watch was about a boy who lived in the future. The boy flew around in a tiny airplane that he parked on the roof of his house. He had a robot and a small machine that could make any kind of food with a push of a button. Walter went to bed wishing he lived in the future. He couldn't wait to have his own tiny plane, a robot take out the trash, and a machine that could make jelly donuts by the thousands. When he fell asleep, his wish came true. That night, Walter's bed traveled to the future. Is it going to be the future that Walter wants, or is it going to be a different future? Based on, this is a good point to stop too. What do you infer his future? If you weren't sure about that question, now stop and see if it makes better sense to you now. Stopping here. Wow. This is what he woke up to see. See the house is buried by trash? When Walter woke up in the middle of a huge dump. A bulldozer was pushing a heap of bulging trash bags toward him. "Stop!" he yelled. The man driving the bulldozer put his machine in neutral. "Oh, sorry," he said. "Didn't see ya." Walter looked at the distant mountains of trash and saw half-buried houses. "Do people live here?" he asked. "Not anymore," answered the man. A few feet from the bed was a rusty old street sign that read, "Floral Avenue." "Oh no!" gasped Walter. He lived on Floral Avenue. The driver revved up his bulldozer. "Well," he shouted, "back to work." Walter pulled the covers over his head. This can't be the future, he thought. I'm sure it's just a dream. He went back to sleep, but not for long. Now what's the dream? What happened to all the trees? Walter peered over the edge of his bed, which was caught in the branches of a tall tree. Down below, he could see two men carrying a large saw. "Hello!" Walter called out. "Hello to you!" they shouted back. "You aren't going to cut down this tree, are you?" Walter asked. But the woodcutters didn't answer. They took off their jackets, rolled up their sleeves, and got to work. Back and forth they pushed the saw, slicing through the trunk of Walter's tree. "You must need this tree for something important," Walter called down. "Oh, yes," they said. "Very important." Then Walter noticed lettering on the woodcutters' jackets. He could just make out the words, "Quality Toothpick Company." Is that something important, friends? Walter sighed and slid back under the covers until, what's that look like, friends? You said pollution. You are correct. Smokestacks. Lots of pollution there. Walter couldn't stop coughing. His bed was balanced on the rim of a giant smokestack. The air was filled with smoke that burned his throat and made his eyes itch. All around him, dozens of smokestacks belched thick clouds of hot, foul smoke. A workman climbed one of the stacks. "What is this place?" Walter called out. "This is Maximum Strength Medicine Factory," the man answered. "Gosh," said Walter, looking at all the smoke. "What kind of medicine do they make here?" "Wonderful medicine," the workman replied. "For burning throats and itchy eyes." Walter started coughing again. "I can get you some," the man offered. "No thanks," said Walter. He buried his head in the pillow and, when his coughing stopped, fell asleep. But then, oh whoa, where is he now? Where's he going now? Oh, at the top of Mount Everest. What's at the top of Mount Everest, guys? Looks like a big hotel. The only way you can get there now is to climb, and there's no hotel up there. Snowflakes fell on Walter. He was high in the mountains. A group of people wearing snowshoes and long fur coats hiked past his bed. "Where are you going?" Walter asked. "To the hotel," one of them replied. Walter turned around and saw an enormous building. A sign on it read Hotel Everest. "Is that a hotel?" asked Walter. "On the top of Mount Everest?" "Yes," said one of the hikers. "Isn't it beautiful?" "Well," Walter began, but the group didn't wait for an answer. They waved goodbye and marched away. Walter stared at the flashing yellow sign, then crawled back underneath his sheets. But then there was more to see. Oh, what do we got here? Looks like fishermen. Walter's hand was wet and cold. When he opened his eyes, he found himself floating in the open sea, drifting toward a fishing boat. The men on the boat were laughing and dancing. "Ship ahoy!" Walter shouted. The fishermen waved to him. "What's the celebration for?" he asked. "We just caught a fish," one of them yelled. "Back on our second one this week." Ooh, that's not very many fish in a week. One of them yelled back. They held up their small fish for Walter to see. "Aren't you supposed to throw the little ones back?" Walter asked. But the fishermen didn't hear them. They were busy singing and dancing. Oh, they're singing and dancing over two fish. That's not a good sign about the fish in the ocean. It means there's not very many there. Walter turned away. Soon the rocking of the bed put him to sleep. But only for a moment. Look at that one. What do you see on that truck? Do you see it on that truck? Whoa, look at that. That's a lot of traffic, huh, friends? A loud shrieking horn nearly lifted Walter off his mattress. He jumped up. There were cars and trucks all around him. horns honking loudly, creeping along inch by inch. Every driver had a car phone in one hand and a big cup of coffee in the other. When the traffic stopped completely, the honking grew even louder. Walter could not get back to sleep. Hours passed, and he wondered if he'd be stuck on this highway forever. He pulled his pillow tightly around his head. This can't be the future, he thought. Where are the tiny airplanes? The robots? The honking continued into the night until finally, one by one, the cars became quiet as their drivers, and Walter went to sleep. But his bed traveled on. Oh, this is interesting. I wonder where he's going now. You guys tell what this is? It's a very famous place to go and visit. But normally you can see it better. Right now it just looks like clouds, maybe some landforms. Walter looked up. A horse stood right over his bed, staring directly at him. In the saddle was a woman wearing cowboy clothes. "My horse likes you," she said. "Good," replied Walter, who wondered where he ended up this time. All he could see was a dull yellow haze. "Son," the woman told him, spreading her arms in front of her. "This is the mighty Grand Canyon." Walter gazed into the foggy distance. "Of course," she went on, "with all this smog, nobody's gotten a good look at it for years. That's the pollution in the air." The woman offered to sell Walter some postcards that showed the canyon in the old days. "They're real pretty," she said. But he couldn't look. "It's just a dream," he told himself. "I know I'll wake up soon, back in my room." But he didn't. Where's he going now, friends? Oh, look, there's a duck on his bed. High above the clouds. Walter looked out from under his sheets. His bed was flying through the night sky. A flock of ducks passed overhead. One of them landed on the bed, and to Walter's surprise, he began to speak. "I hope you don't mind," the bird said, "if I take a short rest here." The ducks had been flying for days, looking for the pond where they had always stopped to eat. "I'm sure it's down there somewhere," Walter said, though he suspected something awful might have happened. After a while, the duck waddled to the edge of the bed, took a deep breath, and flew off. "Good luck," Walter called to him. Then he pulled the blanket over his head. "It's just a dream," he whispered, and wondered if it would ever end. Then finally, Walter's bed returned to the present. All right, so we're gonna pause there. Question number 2. What do you think he will do upon returning to the present? So pause your video and answer question 2. What do you think he will do upon returning to the present? Go ahead and stop. Answer question 2. All right. Walter's bed, you should have answered question 2. If you haven't answered question 2, pause the video and answer question 2. Walter's bed returned to the present. He was safe in his room again, but he felt terrible. The future he'd seen was not what he'd expected. Robots and little airplanes did not seem to be very important now. He looked out his window at the trees and the lawns in the early morning light. Then he jumped out of bed. He ran outside and down the block, still in his pajamas. He found the empty jelly donut bag he'd thrown at the fire hydrant the day before. Then Walter went back home, and before the sun came up, sorted all the trash by the garage. Oh, that's some better choices, isn't it? Oh, look, it's his birthday. What did he get for his birthday? A few days later, on Walter's birthday, all of his friends came over for cake and ice cream. They loved his new toys. The laser gun set, electric yo-yo, and inflatable dinosaur. All right. Which one? And he got a tree. Which one do you think is going to be his favorite present? That's question number 3. Stop the video and answer question 3. What do you think his new favorite present will be? Okay. You should have answered question 3. My best present, Walter told them, is outside. Then he showed them the gift that he'd picked out the morning. A tree. After the party, Walter and his dad planted the birthday present. When he went to bed, Walter looked out his window. He could see his tree and the tree Rose had planted on her birthday. He liked the way they looked side by side. Then he went to sleep, but not for long, because that night Walter's bed took him away again. All right, question number 4. You're going to stop now. So Walter is now making different choices. How do you think his future is going to look now? Is it going to look the same as it did in his dream before, or is it now going to look different? Make a guess. What do you think his future will look like now? Okay, stop the video. Answer question 4. Okay, you guys should have answered question 4. After Walter makes different choices in the present, how do you think his future, his new future, will look? If you said something like this, you made the right choice. See his bed? When Walter woke up, his bed was standing in the shade of 2 tall trees. The sky was blue. Laundry hanging from a clothesline flapped in the breeze. A man pushed an old motorless lawnmower. This isn't the future, Walter thought. It's the past. Good morning, the man said. You found a nice place to sleep. Yes, I have, Walter agreed. There was something very peaceful about the huge trees next to his bed. The man looked up at the rustling leaves. My great-grandmother planted one of those trees, he said, when she was a little girl. Who's his great-grandmother? If you said Rose, you're correct. Walter looked up at the trees too and realized where his bed had taken him. This was the future, after all. A different kind of future. There were still no robots or tiny airplanes. There weren't even any clothes dryers or gas-powered lawnmowers. Walter lay back and smiled. I like it here, he told the man, then drifted off to sleep in the shade of 2 giant trees. So the trees he and Rose had planted the trees he and Rose had planted so many years ago. Listen to that. There weren't even any clothes dryers or gas-powered lawnmowers, because those things give off pollution. So you can see here, and he's using a lawnmower that doesn't have gas in it. So there were some big changes. All right, that's it. That was just a dream. So question number 5 asks, what message is Chris Van Allsburg trying to send through the story? What's he trying to get people to understand and to learn? Okay, what's the message here? Okay, think about what we did in with our Patricia Polacco stories. What is the message Chris Van Allsburg is trying to get people to understand? All right, friends, I'll see you later. Bye.